his name better in a few moments. We also have political analyst Benji Ndolo, as well as lawyer Tommy Randall. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in studio. I think I'll settle for Mukwana instead of Alutalala. It's a bit too difficult for me. But let's take a look at us making headlines on the dailies this morning. And on the front page of the Sunday Standard, up to 1 billion shillings in epic battle of top lawyers. And on the front page of the Sunday Nation, their inside story of NASA's election court battle. But let's begin with us making headlines on the Standard newspaper. So on the front page there, an epic battle of top legal minds there, as about 1 billion shillings is up for grabs for the top legal minds that will be representing the parties in this presidential petition. And that report continues on from pages 4 to page 9 of the paper. Let's begin on page 6, because on page 6 is the headline, NASA's case is a waste of time. And this is from Jubilee, the Jubilee legal team, saying they have gone through the petition given by NASA and they are confident that they will be flooring the opposition again. Let's begin with you, Benji, on your thoughts, first of all, on the contents that have been going around on the petition that was given by NASA.
Michelle, thanks for having me. Good morning. Good, lovely Sunday morning. I'm a big proponent of the philosophy that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And we had this discussion here at KTN, out there in blogosphere, in different fora, about the choice of flag bearer and why. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. This Supreme Court ruling, when it happened, I was actually here at the KTN studio up here at the atrium. And as you well know, the ruling was about maybe 3 minutes long, in which the former Chief Justice, an ex-detainee himself, a hero by any standards, promised to deliver the full judgment within months, after which there was a lot of delay because there was allegedly a discrepancy between the actual results and additional 2 million ballots that Honorable Raila Odinga asserted came in from the UK on KQ, this got marked, etc. So this is the same court then that forced this former heroic Chief Justice to run away, and that got now a new one. And you're telling me that you're going there in search of justice.
So are you agreeing then that NASA's case is a waste of time?
I think the strategy is wrong from the beginning. The strategy is wrong through and through. They're not able to think outside the box. They're not able to use the weapons that they have. They're always outfoxed by Jubilee. And so I think it's a disservice, Michelle, for us to sit on national television and kind of lie to Kenyans that we're perusing the details of the petition, and in here is some sort of magic that will have Uhuru chased away. Are you kidding me? How?
All right, and we'll be taking a look at the details of that petition. But Mukwana, your thoughts on the Jubilee's side's remarks? They're saying NASA is a waste of time. Do you agree with Benji Ndolo?
Thanks, Michelle, for hosting us this morning. Yes and no. It is my view that when NASA went into these campaigns, the best approach should have been to adopt a preventive approach that would have seen them not lose the election and therefore not reach where we are now, as opposed to trying to, close the stable after the horse has already bolted. So to that extent, I would agree with Benji that what NASA ought to have done, and if you remember, Michelle, Honorable Raila Odinga told us very clearly that this time we are not going to come back to our people to say
Imeibiwa.
Kumeibiwa. And to many NASA supporters, they believed him that what he has in stock this time is preventive. Kwamba hawatoiba na wakiiba watajulikana kabla hawajameza. Sasa washameza, utamtoa mdomoni, si balaa. So in my view, to that extent, yes, it ought to have been a preventive step. However, I do not agree with my brother Benji when he says that going to court is a waste of time. As an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, that will be wrong to say that going to court is a waste of time. In any case, what Jubilee is saying, you must take it with a pinch of salt, Michelle. These are the same politicians who like beating the drums of war, and they're at it again. When Raila said, we are not having the option of going to court, condemnations came.
Right.
That you must go to court. That is the constitutional way of solving disputes. Honorable Raila has said very well, even against the wishes of some of his supporters. If you remember that clip in Kisumu, that mama selling burgers saying, why are you going back to court? We were there in 2013. It didn't help us. Why are you going back there?
Right.
So when Honorable Raila says we'll go to the court of public opinion, that's exactly what they had in mind. We are not going to court because 2013 we were done in. This time we are going to the court of public opinion. So we expected that they not go to court, go to the streets, demonstrate, which is a constitutional guarantee, by the way. Nobody should tell Kenyans that they are not allowed to demonstrate. What they are not allowed to do is to steal, destroy, pillage property as they do that. So I do not agree with those who are holding that, look, going to court is a waste of time. I've had the privilege to peruse the petition.
Right.
I've not had the privilege to peruse the defense. And I can assure you that NASA have a very good case.
Right.
Anyone who is saying it's a waste of time knows what we lawyers don't know.
We don't expect their rivals to say the case is too difficult for them to prosecute, but we'll be taking a look at the details of that in just a moment. But Tommy, when Benji began, he said you cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, going all the way back to the choice of a flag bearer for the opposition. Do you think that is where they began getting it wrong?
Yes. I think the nation is suffering from what I call Raila fatigue. Okay? And in addition to that, there are so many mistakes made during the campaign. Their marketing of their party, I can't even call it a party, it's a confederation of sorts, to where I go to the ballot and there's no NASA there. Then I have people who are in my same coalition competing against me at every level of government. You see, that was first bad strategy in the first place. And you know, they seem to be consistently making bad choices, bad strategies, hopefully they can salvage themselves in court. And that's still going to be a tall order because of the precedent that was set in 2013. Now, the funny thing is they have the team of lawyers. They have a former AG on their side, senior counsels and all that, and they keep making legal mistakes and strategic mistakes that that people of their caliber should not be making.
Right, all right. Let's go back to Mukwana's concerns of having, initially that NASA should have had preventative measures as opposed to finding itself where it is now. But yes, Raila Odinga did tell his supporters this time they will not rig this election. This time we've put in place enough measures to ensure that if they rig the election, they will be found. And that resulted in that landmark court ruling that presidential results will be final at the constituency level. But let's go back to page 4 of the Standard newspaper and take a look at some of the complaints that NASA has in their petition. And one of them is that the entire process from the polling stations to the constituency and national tallying center was not simple, not accurate, not verifiable, secure, accountable, transparent, or open and prompt. So it was a big celebration for both NASA and the country as a whole, because this was a win for the country in that landmark ruling. But Benji, what do you make of this now? Because many are arguing you cannot just say a law is good because when it favors you, and when it's not in your favor, you start going against that particular law.
I think there are very serious issues to be canvassed in court, and which is why the importance and credibility of institutions, Michelle, is very important. But I think we are still making a mistake even in analysis here. While the court can offer a legal solution to this problem, there's a bigger angle to this issue, which is a political settlement for the sake, especially, and this concerns me a lot, Michelle, for the sake of the unity of the country. Because we don't want some communities saying that clearly, and not everyone is as educated and as exposed as you, that Kabila langu hatuwezi. Right. Clearly it's been seen, Raila's father was unable, Raila is unable, etc. So for me, because you're seeing even intelligentsia, academia talking about divorce, talking about, we need to carve out a different part of the republic for certain communities and for others. That's the talk that worries me. I'm a young Kenyan that wants to see this country move forward. And therefore, the pursuit of justice, Michelle, is not just in these little details and how one can outmaneuver the other. We must look at also the greater context and the greater well-being of the country. Now, one of the points I wanted to make very quickly, because I'll let the lawyers respond in detail to these allegations, Michelle. One of the problems that we had is, in actual fact, Raila and Uhuru should have begun this way on the actual day of returns. At zero.
At zero.
And then once Kiambu comes in, Uhuru goes up. Once Nairobi comes in, maybe in Nyanza, Raila catches up. And then another stronghold comes in like Mombasa and Raila overtakes Uhuru. Rift Valley comes in and Uhuru overtakes Raila. Without addressing these kinds of issues, because you know perception is reality, Michelle, you then have a general feeling that Raila is cooked from the beginning all the time. And this is what I saw on some footage yesterday, a lady sitting on the ground saying, how come these people always fix Raila?
Right.
And so, no matter the outcome of the case, again, and especially if it goes the way that we think, that it's very difficult to annul the win of a president, of an incumbent, all right? We must look at the greater problem of people basically giving up. The youth, 5 million youth voted for the first time. And we must not have, in a democracy, Michelle, people feel that, you know, no matter what you do, this thing is already rigged from the beginning, and the decision is already made. This is not so much about Raila Odinga as a person. It's also about the country and the future of the country and the future of democracy. And so I'd rather look at it in that larger context and then leave the details to the lawyers. But again, I'll reiterate that it's unfortunate that we had the perception that from when the results started coming in, all right, and we're not trying it here on studio, Uhuru began ahead and remained ahead. This is what happened in 2013. This is what has led to, and why it's an important point, Michelle, is that no matter what happens in court, that perception
still remains.
And makes the people feel whether Raila has lost or not, that he has been rigged, and that's a problem. How then,
Mukwana, would we begin finding an all-round solution, not just a court solution to the stalemate between Uhuru and Uhuru and Raila, but a political solution to this issue as well? Because as it is, the issue of trust is one that has divided Kenyans along many lines. The issue of trust is what has got us here where we are in the first place. Do you think, Mukwana, that we will be able to find an all-round solution and not just a court solution?
Thank you, Michelle. First of all, before I respond to that, allow me just to mention something about what my colleague here says, that there is Raila fatigue in the country. I would take exception to that with due respect, because if even with the alleged cooking of results, Raila has 6 million plus.
Imagine.
That doesn't indicate fatigue.
Right.
So I will take exception, with greatest of respect to my colleague, to that kind of statement. Two, when he talks about 2013, the legal team of Raila and co having made legal mistakes, from where I sit, I do not know what mistakes are. With the greatest respect to the decision of 2013, the Supreme Court, we know, and as Benji has said, that the court did not give grounds for the decision before they made the decision. That is the ordinary way of doing things in the court, that you justify your decision. Now, I don't want to go into the merits or demerits of that decision. Those who are lawyers know where that merit lies. I want to say this. Politically, the truth of the matter is that even as we celebrate President Uhuru's victory, and even as the others condemn his victory, politically we are a divided country.
Right.
And that's why I agree with Benji.
We are a divided country.
And it is because right from independence, there is this notion that once you are in the office of the president, as John Gidongo says, it is our turn to eat. And therefore, it's a matter of life and death when Raila doesn't go to State House for his supporters. And it's a matter of life and death for President Uhuru's people when there is a slightest indication that the court might rule that he did not win legitimately.
That the seat is going.
Yes. So whichever way the decision goes, I can assure you, our goose is cooked in this country.
And I want us to get into some comparison, in this particular petition and the 2013 petition, and also a comparison, globally. How easy is it, and how, has it even been done that one nullifies presidential results in a petition, especially for an incumbent president? Maybe to come to you, Randall, from a legal standpoint, we're still taking a look at the claims by Jubilee's legal team that NASA's petition is weak and unfounded and they will be flooring Raila Odinga once again. But part of NASA's key arguments, and I'll read this word by word, is they claim that IBC colluded with President Uhuru Kenyatta to deny them victory by allowing 14,000 defective returns from polling stations representing more than 7 million votes. As a result, they say the total presidential votes cast exceeded those of other elective positions such as governors, senators, and member of National Assembly. In terms of, and these are some of the 10 key arguments that are contained in this petition. Mukwana says they hold a lot of water, and anybody who dismisses them then, would not be a real legal practitioner. But in your words, Tommy, does this hold any water, enough water to overturn the ruling, the decision on the presidential results?
That's something we won't really know until we examine the evidence that they will have to present to prove their argument. Secondly, a good thing about the court hearing this case is it'll give the 45% an opportunity to be heard, even though they lost.
Right.
So that should help a little in the healing, because we are a nation divided, like we have both said here. As far as it overturning the outcome, I'm not too sure. I don't see it happening. I don't see sufficient grounds for it to happen. But that's me speculating before actually looking at the evidence itself.
All right. Let's take a look at the 2013, presidential petition, and that is on page 9 of the Standard this morning. And the headline here is why legal experts gave the 2013 ruling negative ratings. Yep. Now, of course, there was a unanimous decision. The unanimous decision, rather, by the Supreme Court then was criticized even by the Law Society of Kenya and the top legal minds, as well as international law scholars. Some of them would term that decision as a giant jurisprudential step backward. Many criticized the judgment for its lack of depth, a weak philosophical base, and said that the judges then were a bit too lenient. Looking at some of the issues that NASA once determined in this petition, they want non-compliance, IBC officers rather, to be punished for non-compliance with the Constitution, for collaborating with the ruling government. In your thoughts, Mukwana, if you compare the 2013 petition to this petition, where does this leave the Supreme Court in terms of its credibility and redeeming itself?
In a historical, monumental position to make a landmark ruling that will go into the annals of history.
Right.
I say this because the court of the Supreme Court as currently constituted is not comparable to the then court as was constituted.
In 2013.
In 2013. Number two, looking at the 11 grounds that NASA has put forward, I would be very, very reluctant to say that come the decision time, we do not see the decision going the NASA way. As a lawyer, every decision of the court is predicated upon the production of evidence. What is before us now is the petition. And Michelle, for me as a lawyer, the crux of the decision will rest not so much on the polling station, but on the issue of verifiability, accountability, and transparency. One interesting claim that NASA has made here is that there were ungazetted polling stations. And if there is a proof that indeed there were ungazetted polling stations, then the question for determination by the Supreme Court is whether, first of all, the law was violated. Clearly, that would be a violation of the law,
right,
because the law requires that all polling stations, plus the returning officer and the polling and the POs, must be gazetted. So if this was not done, as NASA seems to claim, that would be a serious violation.
Right.
Whether that would be a substantive ground to declare President Uhuru's election null and void rests with the Supreme Court. But clearly, it will be, and I repeat, it will be a travesty of injustice, of justice, for anyone to say that the NASA petition as currently laid before the Supreme Court is going to be a walk in the park for the lawyers of Jubilee.
All right, and that's something I will be discussing in a moment. But Tommy, from a legal standpoint, I'm sure you've taken a look at the details of the 2013 petition. What did you make of that ruling that has been highly criticized by legal practitioners?
There were a few motions that were dismissed based on technicalities, about 3 of them. And that's very important because according to our constitution, technicalities should not hinder you from attaining justice. So those are the 3, that would be the most glaring issue I would have with the 2013 ruling. But now the court is constituted with 3 new people, with a new Chief Justice. So with that mistake, with the benefit of hindsight, hopefully this will not happen now.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And also these issues being addressed as soon as this evidence is produced in court, will help us streamline and better this process so it seems more credible in future. Like Benji said, perception is everything. So at least through this process, we'll come out with a better way forward in the next election,
Right.
regardless of the outcome.
Michelle, allow me just
Go
one small point. Again, what happened in 2013 is it badly hurt the credibility of the court. So that every legal analyst was shocked by the nonchalant, casual, flippant approach with which the court handled such a matter of gravity.
Right.
What that exposes then is that the expectations are very high, and while the expectations are high, the probability that supposedly independent arms of government or institutions are still under soft and quiet capture by the system. Why this is an important point, Michelle, is because NASA on its part, and I know you can argue that, what other option do they have? But then in so arguing, you'd be foregoing the fact that they have a huge following in this country. They have boxed themselves into a corner where their very casual approach as well in thinking, you know what, if we chase away Issa Hassan, we will find justice. So now, for example, yesterday at Chris Msando's burial, Chebukati and Chilobo couldn't attend. You ask yourself why. They're only 6 months in office.
Where they cited security concerns.
Exactly. And so that tells you that removing the other commissioners has landed you in the same position, if not worse, than where you were before. And so you must, and this is also for the lawyers because they spend a lot of time also doing commentary and also giving advice. You must not use elastoplast solutions for cases that require deep surgery. It is a fallacy to vilify a judge, to vilify a court, when clearly the forces that are acting upon that court are greater than the court itself.
Right.
And those are some of the things that... Why this is an important point, Michelle, is I must close by saying this. One of the things that encourages me as a social activist is the fact that despite all these issues, Michelle, there is still a huge hunger in this country, if you look at even the last elections, for performance, for change, for institutions that can actually pick a rogue governor, prosecute him in court, and send him to committee. There is still that in our spirit, besides everything. And so that is an encouraging thing because it explains why the Constitution was voted for, even though it has come under attack, and a lot of the people that are in power today are not willing to implement that Constitution. Be that as it may, Kenyans still want a strong court, a powerful presidency, not an imperialist presidency, but a powerful presidency, and a hard-working, people-serving legislature,
Right,
parliament.
absolutely, as well as strong institutions from the Constitution.
Motivating.
But we will
Yes.
continue this conversation in just a moment, gentlemen. We must take a short break. We've been speaking to political analyst Benji Ndolo, as well as lawyers Alutalala Mukwana and Tommy Randall, taking a look at us making headlines on the dailies this morning. Kivumbi 2017 takes a short commercial break. Do stay with us.
This is KTN News.